Happy Wednesday and welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. Check out Mark Moyer's networking events and informational events. Had one yesterday. Check out winagainacademy.com for the next one. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have John Balkam in the Wolff Den. How is everything going?
Doing great, Matt. It's a beautiful spring day here in DC, and life is good.
Yeah, I heard it was warming up a little bit. My brother's in Jersey. It snowed the other day, and then it's 60 degrees the day after. So global warming, but that's for another conversation, right?
Right. Well, and if you're a sports fan, Matt, we've got the most transactions that you'll ever see, like in 1 week, I feel like, with NFL, MLB, and NHL all having big deadlines. So
$150 million guaranteed to Aaron Rodgers. I don't even know what to say about that. Good for him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Packers are going to have to sell a lot of fake shareholder shares to their company to pay for Rodgers.
I'm surprised they haven't turned those into NFTs, Matt, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
They will. More useless NFTs. That's what we need out in the marketplace. For those who don't know you, give a quick introduction, and then we'll get into everything.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. My name's John Balkam. I'm the founder and managing partner of an agency called Third Win Group, or TWG. We are an independent agency. We're about 2.5, 3 years old. We exist to serve athletes, artists, creators, and brands who are on a mission to serve others and protect the planet. So we're in the very early stages, but we're building a modern agency focused on talent representation and brand partnerships. And our mission is to be one of the most impactful companies in the sports entertainment industry over time.
Yeah. So speaking of being impactful, are we talking about sustainability? Are we talking about social justice? Obviously, everything, right? But do you have a focus on one? Do you have an idea of where you've been as of now and where you're headed?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do, Matt, with our clients and the missions that they're trying to pursue and the causes that they're trying to really support and make progress on. In my mind, two of the biggest things that I want to contribute to and that our team wants to contribute to is just a healthier planet with healthier people on it. And I feel like there's not a whole lot that you can really argue of, like, those are issues we shouldn't contribute towards. I feel like that those are pretty, common causes that we can all get behind. Now, so far that's manifested in doing quite a bit of work with sustainable brands and in the environmental space, doing quite a bit in the mental health and well-being space. But we're going to grow and expand as we grow our client base and, support the missions and the causes that our clients are on. But when it comes right down to it, if we can help contribute to a healthier planet with healthier people on it, we would be pretty happy with the outcome.
Now, you made an interesting point, kind of jokingly, but there's some truth to it, because there are people who aren't all in on this stuff somehow. And, that's weird, right? I mean, it's weird to be like, hey, we don't want to have a cleaner air to breathe, but there are people who are against it for whatever reason that is. There's people against it. So how do you navigate through that type of environment that we're in these days with the causes?
I just try to think long term.
Yeah.
Right? I just try to think long term, Matt, and think about what I can control. I can't really control the whole environment and the culture that we live in. I can only try and make my small little contribution in the areas where I think that are important for other people and for our planet. And I also just think that since there is all this negativity and just polarization out there in all facets of human culture, why not be one of those individuals who chooses to be more positive and focus on the good and try to focus on contribution, try and focus on improving oneself and improving one's community. And it's pretty simple from my standpoint. I just don't want to be someone who's contributing to the more negative things that are happening in the world. I want to try and make a positive contribution as much as I can.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I don't know why people don't just move on. If it's not your cup of tea,
Right.
just move on. There's so many other causes or things to discuss that are more important other than letting someone do what they want to do if it's not hurting you. I mean, there's a lot of issues that fall under that, and probably stuff that you guys would love to get behind. I'm wondering if, as we're talking about hearing all of the different issues that you guys would like to get a part of, whether it's sustainability or a healthier mind, mental health, maybe it's equality. Is there a disadvantage to trying to please everyone and get all those types of customers that you're working with, as opposed to having a singular focus, because these people might want to be a part of someone who's more in tune with just, we're trying to cure cancer, we're trying to do mental health, we want sustainability and save the oceans, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Matt, we we can't quote unquote boil the ocean, right? And one thing that we advise our clients on, and certainly we think about all the time, is like trying to pick a lane or maybe up to like 3 lanes where we really feel like we can contribute. And with our clients, some have multiple causes that they really want to make a contribution on, but some are really like laser focused on, I just want to focus on sustainability and the environment, right? And that does create a really compelling story about that individual that is making brands more attracted to them and making customers and fans. And, I think that narrative that, athletes and artists are just there for entertainment, if it hasn't already been eliminated, it should be eliminated pretty soon. And I think we'll be a part of that. But to your point, we're not trying to, I don't like the idea of trying to change the world. I think the world's going to change no matter what you or I or any of our clients do. What I try and think about, my mindset and our mindset with TWG, is how can we serve? How can we serve the community? How can we serve each other? How can we serve ourselves well in our actions and behaviors? And that takes a lot of pressure off, right? Like, if you're trying to change the world, like, good luck, right? Like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of complexity and variability, in the world every single day. The world is changing every single day,
Right.
but we can find a way to serve others, right? Literally, maybe even on our neighborhood block, maybe in our small town, in our community, in our city. The more you have kind of a following, a fan base, the more you have kind of cultural influence, I would say the more opportunity you have to serve. But even some of our biggest stars, in the sports entertainment industry, I don't think they really have as much kind of power to change the world as we like to say that they do. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
No, I think it's a fair point, but also serving in a smaller group in a community is generally going to be a lot easier, maybe even more effective, than trying to do this big project to serve everyone. Like, Nike puts out a mental health type of program. Well, okay, that's great. It's getting some attention, some conversation, but what is it really doing for people, as opposed to, this organization is doing this in this small community, and we're raising awareness and we're raising money, and we're getting the local celebrities or athletes or artists. So I think that, starting at a smaller group is really what could be, because, seeing Aaron Rodgers on there, trying to pitch whatever it is, and they do it, right? I mean, it's all you see on commercials, like Aaron Rodgers and Steph Curry, they're all in trying to sell Subway. But I don't know that that's really the way they're best to serve. So, the stuff that you're doing seems like it's, a lot better of a purpose for people, and the people you never even heard of too. Like, we had no idea about who's the Rams offensive guy who was the man of the year, Peyton man of the year, and just retired and doing great things. You never even heard of him before, unless you're in that area.
Right. Yeah. Andrew Whitworth, who's just retired, total legend. Yeah. It's interesting, Matt, this kind of gets into like the core of TWG and our business. One thing that I observed when starting the business was, it didn't really seem like sports marketing and advertising and and marketing and sponsorship had really evolved that much. There hadn't been that much innovation. To me, what I kind of observed growing up, being a huge sports fan here in DC, going to tons of games, like billboards and ballparks has been basically what we've been seeing forever, right? As sports marketing was, sort of quote unquote invented 40, 50 years ago, around the time when Mark McCormick and Arnold Palmer were really kind of ramping up this idea of the athlete as a spokesperson. And then the LA 84 Olympics really transformed sponsorship as like this massive industry where, brands can use sports to capture people's attention. But as far as I can tell, we're kind of still doing the same stuff as, back in the Arnold Palmer days and as in the LA 84 days, which is, billboards and ballparks and quarterbacks selling you products on TV, right? And that's very small simplification. And I don't want to discount the progress that's been made in the industry. But I think there's been so much of it over so many years that fans and customers are saying, like, why should I care? Why should I care about this sponsorship deal? Why should I care about Aaron Rodgers promoting State Farm? Why should I care about Steph Curry promoting Subway, right? I've seen this a million times, right? And I've seen a billboard in a ballpark a million times, right? Is that gonna change my mind about that brand? Like, I probably already have a good feeling about, here's what this brand is trying to do. I'm like, I either care or I don't care, right? So my thinking around, this whole 3-win sponsorship model and the TWG approach has been, let's give people a reason why they should care about a sponsorship deal or an advertisement in the sports entertainment industry. Yeah. And the idea of a third win, creating a win-win-win type of arrangement through marketing is, let's, create a win for whoever our client is. This is from a TWG's perspective. Let's create a win for our client. Let's create a win for our partner. Then let's create a win for, society, for other people, for the customer, for the employee, for the investor, and then just for the, the world in general. And I think the reason why this is effective is, like, people want to buy from, work for, and invest in companies that are demonstrating a clear commitment to something bigger than just profits, something bigger than just selling products or services, right?
Yeah.
So that was my insight. That's where we are trying to innovate and be different as an agency, and how our approach is different from a sponsorship and marketing perspective, as opposed to some of the more legacy agencies, shall we say.
Yeah, I think, and I always want to work with good people, good causes, good companies, but I think that there is still enough people buying, and behavior is predicated on who are they dealing with. Like these influencers, you get 100,000, 200,000 followers on TikTok and Instagram, and people are paying you to pitch their stuff because they know that other people are going to be buying it, which is still crazy to me. Like, I'm not going to pay someone to pitch Ticket Time Machine. If you like what we're doing, by all means, come aboard and help us. But I'm not going to try and sell tickets because, Tom Brady is telling you, hey, unless we're working with Tom Brady and we're going to pitch that thing. But it's weird. It's hard to, so it's hard to just try and be like, hey, we're doing good here. It's hard. That's a hard sell, even though it seems like it should be an easy sell. It's kind of a hard sell, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think it's a kind of a long game, right? Whereas almost everybody else is in it for like the quick wins these days. It seems like taking this type of approach and mindset, you really first have to do the right things first before you go start talking about doing the right things. By that, I mean, number one, you need to treat your employees right. You need to treat your customers or clients right. You need to be a good citizen in the communities where your business operates. And then you need to have a strategy around how does our brand authentically, go above and beyond to contribute to the greater good. So there's a lot of like investment and a lot of long-term thinking and a lot of long-term action that goes into doing this effectively. Because if you're just going to make a small donation, or something that's a donation that's substantial but a drop in the bucket as a corporation, and then you're going to start beating your chest about that, I think that's where you see customers, and people certainly on social media saying this is so inauthentic, this is so disingenuous of this brand. They're just trying to, pull the wool over our eyes, or this is called cause washing or greenwashing, right? So if you're going to take the approach that we suggest, and by the way, we don't say every single advertisement or sponsorship deal needs to have a cause attached to it. That's not what we're saying. But if you are going to talk about how good of a citizen your company is, you need to be able to back it up with legit actions over a long period of time. And the other thing I would say, Matt, is we almost, like, the brands almost need to be more of like cheering on their fans or their customers more so than talking about how great their brand is, right? I don't know if you've experienced this, but those brands that are always kind of pumping up how they themselves are so generous and altruistic seem to fall flat. Whereas if they tell a story about, an employee or ambassador who's doing good work, I'm much more willing to hear that story than to hear about AT&T being a really great corporate citizen, right? I don't really care about AT&T. I care about a human story about how someone's life became better because, this individual took certain actions.
Chick-fil-A does a good job of that with their commercials, where they have the employees sitting on the couch, and they've done some good stuff in that arena. And yet Chick-fil-A is an interesting company to talk about, because I love Chick-fil-A, okay? But I don't agree with what they stand for. I'm Jewish. Their whole Sunday thing and against gays, it's fine. The other side of that is, and I'm a big Seinfeld fan, and this was one of the things with Jerry and Elaine, is I can't start figuring out what everybody that I deal with and work with believes in. Is if I start diving into that, I'm gonna have very little stuff to eat or drink or buy or wear, right? So it just depends on how big of an issue is it, because everyone has the right to believe. I disagree with what they do. I think it's bad. I'm not going to stop eating their chicken because of it. But, if there was a thing where people were all saying we're all going to stop eating for a day until they do it, I might take a part of that.
Yeah, it is interesting climate that we're in, right, culturally, because yes, I do think we've made some important progress on certain causes, but some causes, like, is it right for brands to be the arbiter of what's good and bad, right? And I do think it gets a little bit overzealous when we are just going to say we're not going to eat this food, just because we have a disagreement over how the company executives run their company, right? And as long as it's not like doing active harm to people, right? Like, I can't see why we have this culture of like, what you said or your views that conflict with my views mean that you don't deserve to operate your business anymore, or something like that, right? That is over. I think we've overshot here when it comes to trying to progress as a society. That's very big picture, but I would say, our thinking and our approach as a business is we are going to try and focus on, positive contribution and empowering people, good people, our clients, to help them make positive contributions. But ultimately, there are going to be some people who probably disagree with some of the missions and causes that we are putting our name and our reputation up against. But we're just trying to do what we think is right. I can't, again, back to that, like, I can't control how other people are going to react to what I think is right. I'm doing the best I can. And if you disagree, by all means, do what you got to do.
Yeah. The thing about that is that the line between right and wrong has been so blurred. Like, I always talk about, I'm a golden rule kind of guy. When I do something, I'm trying to think, am I on the right side of history? And I think there's certain things that we can probably agree, you and I and 99% of the world can agree is right or wrong. But now there's such divide that there's so many people who believe things that are just like, I don't know how you can believe that. And it's so it becomes more difficult to figure out what is right and what is wrong, and then everything you're doing is under a microscope. And so that's part of the challenge as a brand, even as a company like yours and mine, to be like, well, who would you like to work with? Because there's always going to be people on the other side, and depending on how loud they get and who they are, sometimes it doesn't even matter if they're right or wrong. I used to think it mattered if you're right or wrong, but now it's more perception and reality.
Yeah. Well, let's bring it back to marketing, if we can, Matt. I know you're talking about kind of moral, views and ideology, but I heard this interesting kind of phrase about marketing that I may butcher a little bit, but it's essentially marketing is about attracting the right people to you and pushing away the wrong people away from you. And in some ways, we got to keep that in mind, that like marketing is about, and like branding is about attracting the right people to you, to your customer, to your products, to your services, to your brand, and then building relationships with those people. And if it also kind of pushes some people away, that's honestly kind of a good outcome for your business, because then you don't have a customer who's going to turn over anyway. You're by taking these stands. I do think that there are some places where it's like, why are companies making a stance on this?
Virtue signaling. I mean, sometimes they're doing it for the publicity and because they want to be associated with it. There's a lot of that, and there's a lot of humble bragging, the same way you talked about. And the issue with me is it's all getting rewarded. People are getting rewarded for bad behavior, and that's for everything. And I aim to try and to change that in a way to say, like, call people out on their BS, even though there's a million people who are following them, because they'll follow everything that they say. But what about like the marketing and branding about sort of expanding your reach too, to kind of pull in some of the people that might have been on the fence, maybe in that area. I don't know how to do it here, but in that little middle area there, where you got to kind of bring some of those people in, and with that you're kind of widening the net to bring others into the conversation. So that's where it becomes tricky with pulling in and pushing away.
Yeah, I mean that is the complexity of business and marketing, right? Because I'm coming at it right now from a perspective of like a very small early stage business who, I'm just trying to sign my next, 5 clients, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in the seat of someone who's the chief marketing officer for a very large company, you've got to find some way to grow fast. Otherwise shareholders are going to be upset. But, I guess what I would say is, like, I part of my thought process that's like really influencing how I'm moving in the business world and moving in the world generally is that, like, ideology is just really, I don't know. We spend too much time on ideology in my mind. We don't spend enough time on day-to-day actions that can actually improve people's lives. Right. And it's so much easier, Matt, to complain that something is bad than it is to actually build something that's better than the present state that we're in. Right. So I know everyone has the right to complain and raise their voice, but I'm kind of a mindset of like, it's not really worth my time to complain. It's not really worth my time to listen to people who are complaining, but then not trying to
complaining, but not trying to give me a solution, not a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I would just try and think about, operating through this really complex, society that has been garnered. The complexity has gone up in recent years because of the way communication flies around at light speed. I think that question you mentioned, you ask yourself earlier, I think that's actually a good question that companies can ask themselves. Like, am I on the right side of history here? Yeah. Right. If I continue behaving and taking these actions like this, will we look back 20, 30, 50 years from now and be proud of how we behaved?
It's one of my
And
favorite songs, Michael Jackson, "Man in the Mirror."
great song, man. Fantastic song. So I think we are aligned on this, but it's unfortunate just some of the things that we're going through. And I think, there are certain things about the way society operates too today that, people, it makes sense that people are complaining because society's not working that well for everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we've got to keep in mind that, our mindset and our day-to-day actions are more important than, what other people really think day to day.
I think there's a lot of it. A lot of the issue is that people are trying to throw money at problems, or maybe not throw money at problems when there's really different other solutions. I don't want to say better, but other solutions that involve resources and time and compassion and that money is not going to solve necessarily. Maybe that could be cancer, but everyone's always trying to raise money for these causes when there's so many simple things that we can do to help the cause other than just donating money to someone who we don't have any idea what the heck they're doing with that money anyway. So that's sort of, I think, speaks to the let's do something about it instead of just trying to talk about it.
Well,
that's the issue.
You raise a good point, Matt, because the number of nonprofit organizations in the United States and around the world has been going up consistently. But has the effectiveness gone up? Have we? I would say certainly, things like poverty rates have declined. Like worldwide, violence is definitely lower. If you look historically, but what were the causes and effects there? Right? Is it because we donated more money to charity? I mean, this is a whole different ballgame. But we can really look at what are the causes that are most effective when we talk about changing people's lives. There's a whole movement called the effective altruism movement that I've become very interested in, about truly making your dollar, making as much impact as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we start raising more money, if we continue to raise more money, I don't think that's going to necessarily mean we're going to solve all kinds of society's ills,
And not all nonprofits are created equally. I mean, people are using nonprofits. All that means is, right, you're just taking the money you get and reinvesting it into the business. Doesn't mean that people aren't making a lot of money off of it, even if you're not going for profit. So I think, part of that's probably tax loopholes and, considerations that help for people. That's probably way above anything I understand. So I'm not going to go too deep into it. What I want to talk about is the dirty word sponsorship, because I write an article, I don't know if you read it, about the difference between a sponsorship and a partnership and the blurred line between the two. It's like people don't want to use the word sponsorship. They use the word partner. What does that mean to you? What's the difference? Just give us, in a quick way, because you talk about sponsorships. And it involves sort of partnerships, what you guys are doing, but at the end of the day, it's a sponsorship.
Right. Don't worry. I've been guilty of using partnership interchangeably with sponsorship from time to time myself. But I think a sponsorship, it shouldn't be a dirty word. I think let's just think, why do companies sponsor individual athletes or artists?
Like, they want to be associated with it. They want to get more visibility.
But at its core, too, what the company is saying is like they're kind of rooting that individual on to continue to pursue excellence in their field, right? That's like going way back. What sponsorship was about back in like the Christopher Columbus days and the other explorers. Like, we're going to sponsor you so that you can go pursue your mission and pursue excellence. Okay, so, like, at the root, sponsorship is about basically funding an individual so that they can go pursue excellence in whatever field that they're trying to pursue. So now that I'm kind of in here at an agency selling sponsorship, I see it as, we have a professional beach volleyball player who we represent, and he needs sponsorship to continue to play professional beach volleyball, right? the sport isn't big enough to sustain him year to year. And so literally like brands who are able to step up with financial contributions to support his career are helping him continue to be able to be a professional beach volleyball player.
We have a friend of the program, Keegan Brown, who's a 14-year-old motor racer who needs sponsorships in order to survive. But the other sponsorship, and this might not be necessarily what you guys are doing, the other sponsorship is we want to leverage your success or your audience to be more aware of what we're doing.
Right. Well, that's where the value trade comes in, yeah. Right? That the financial value that a brand will put into an individual, the value that they want to receive in return is certain attitudes, behaviors, and certain feelings about their brand that they can only get by kind of putting a human face to their brand, and like a human face that is admired, respected, loved, right? That's where the value trade comes in. And then there's also, just when an athlete is getting paid from a brand, it's not just like, that's it. We announce it and that's it. There's lots of other assets that brands will get from an individual that they're sponsoring to then leverage in any number of different business use cases. Could be marketing, could be brand awareness, could be something with their employees, could be, it is a value trade. That's, in the traditional sense, there's at least got to be a win-win partnership, right? It is a partnership, but when we're talking about sponsorship, there's at least got to be value traded on both sides. Where we're coming in, our ideology, if you will, is that ultimately sponsorship is about making that connection between an individual or an entity and a brand so that the sponsor can connect with its customer or its customers, plural, right? So that's the key. The number one thing that sponsorship needs to do is help the sponsor make a connection to their customers, right? Or acquire a new customer, or retain a customer that it's had for many, many years. So how do we do that, right? Is it billboards and ballparks, right? Is it Patrick Mahomes selling State Farm on national TV? Or is there a way that we can actually inspire people by actually showing and demonstrating that we care about them, right? That's what we call the third win, right? The third win is, all right, the individual and then it's the sponsor of the individual. They come together to contribute to the greater good of the fans, of the community, of the planet. And our thesis is that is sponsorship that will actually be effective in doing what the sponsor wants to do, right? Which is build relationships with its customers. I don't think just doing the traditional sponsorship model is really going to move the needle over the next 10, 20 years.
I agree.
You got to have a why. You got to have a why that says to the customer, like, we care about you. And here's why. We're doing these things. We're partnering with this individual who we know you care about as well. And we're doing something that's a positive contribution to society. That's all it is.
I think the consumer is, I think we're dealing with a very uneducated consumer, and that allows for bad advertising, bad salespeople. So that's what I think one of the tricks of it is, because you can talk about how we're for the fan and we're for the audience and we're doing good, but then you start peeling back the layers on what they actually do and stand for, and you're just like, well, wait a minute, no, you're not. You're very clearly doing this, but saying this. That's the big trick of it. And so, yeah, I mean, there's different types of sponsorships that we have, whether it's the person to support them and then we're sponsoring here. For me, and just to bring it back to the partnership, is a partner is two people adding resources to put something out there and sharing in the gain of what comes in, whether that's revenue or anything else. So it's just funny. I think there's partnership aspects to sponsorships, but I think there is a difference if I say I want to partner with you, as opposed to say, hey, because when I say that, they're, oh, great, we have these packages, and they start talking about sponsorships. And I'm like, no, mean, you could leverage our stuff to put out to your sponsors, which would be new and unique and innovative assets, much to what you're talking about, not just the same old. And but I think the people who are selling sponsorships are trying for the low hanging fruit and not using that bigger vision. And that's where I think everyone's kind of losing out on that. They think that their assets and that they're worth more than they actually are, when in reality they're only worth what someone's going to pay for it. And a lot of times you end up taking money from someone who doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, right? You look at these and I'm like, well, why are they sponsoring this? Like, how does that kind of connect? I think of Matthew McConaughey's Salesforce commercial in the Super Bowl. I'm just like, it's a pretty cool idea, pretty cool commercial, but what the heck was that?
Right, right. I mean, there's an effective way to do what we call 3-win sponsorship, and then there's an ineffective way to try and do it. And when you have, a reaction like that, where you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why? You try and get a cause across or a message across, but customers are kind of wondering, well, why is a CRM software platform trying to, team up with Matthew McConaughey to try and plant 1 billion trees? Like, I do think that I think the reason that most sponsorship professionals don't necessarily try and go deep like this, like we are trying to do, is that it's like more work, right?
Yeah.
Sponsorship is already a multi-billion dollar industry because we've been doing it for so long. What we're suggesting is that the modern customer, and like you're right, like not everybody is truly looking to make purchasing decisions based on brands that align with their values. How I would suggest, though, that younger customers and younger employees, younger investors, who most companies are working very hard to connect with, they do care a lot more than their predecessors about what companies stand for and how they're treating everybody in their ecosystem, all their stakeholders. So I would say we're still early, but I would just encourage everyone, who's listening or watching to pay attention to the ads. If you do watch sports over the weekend, like if you watch March Madness, pay attention to the tone and the content of the ads. And I would suggest to you that you're going to see a lot more companies who are trying to demonstrate why they care about you. We donated X amount to this nonprofit. Our employees are so great and they volunteered this amount of time. We are launching this new initiative, which is increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's everywhere. I mean, I've obviously been, I'm neck deep in this stuff for the past 4 or 5 years, but I think you'll start to see it in how advertising, like on the traditional sense, is changing. So keep an eye out. Like, everybody's trying to get the younger customer because you can keep that customer for longer, right? But that's what everybody check out. March Madness this weekend and see if you notice a little bit of a difference in the advertising purpose and tone.
The Super Bowl was very clearly nostalgia ruled the day, and then electric cars. I mean, that was the two main themes of the Super Bowl commercial. And those are, people are spending a ton of money, and even some of them you're just thinking like, how are you spending this much money on a commercial that doesn't seem, and how are you spending billions and billions of dollars to have your name on a stadium? But the people aren't entering into these without understanding the ROI and what the value of that is. So it's obviously a huge value, like SoFi Stadium and Allegiant and all the name. Like, crypto makes a little bit more sense because they're just trying to, it's not, I don't know. To me, that makes a little bit more sense. They could take the chance on it because people don't know about it. But something like SoFi and Allegiant, and down here is Hard Rock Stadium, and the amphitheater I'm at is I Think Financial. I'd never even heard of it before they sponsored the amphitheater, and actually realized that I drove past it. And I might have driven past it 100 times and not even noticed it. But now, because it's I Think Amphitheater, now every time I see an I Think, I'm going to drive past it. And I was working with banks, and so stuff you realize, it's just a matter of people need to hear it, and then that magic kind of starts to work. And so that's, some of it is just getting your name out there in a sponsorship capacity. It almost doesn't even matter how you're doing it, as long as you're in front of someone.
Yeah. Well, brand awareness, for one thing, like just getting your name in front of customers, that is a challenge, and that is a good way to that is a good thing that traditional sponsorship can do. But if we're trying to move from brand awareness to brand love and brand affinity, that's the question.
Right.
How do you do that?
What's the biggest causes that are going on right now that you guys are working with and seeing?
Yeah, I mean, kind of mentioned it at the beginning, but I mean, everything is around sustainability. I would say that almost every league, almost every team, lots and lots of athletes are, and including there's a nonprofit started by a former MLB player, Chris Dickerson, called Players for the Planet. So sustainability is massive. I mean, it's becoming more mainstream to talk about climate change and climate action. And now I think customers are demanding that companies, including sports franchises, have, a plan in place to reduce their emissions, to reduce their carbon footprint, to kind of be sustainable over the next 30 years. So that's number one.
But a lot of it is sustainability. I'm all for it, but there's a lot of stuff that they're doing that are contradicting. I'll give you two examples here. I go to Tortuga Music Festival. It's supposed to be about saving the beaches, and every fan there, I mean, it's chaos, the type of garbage that people would just throw. And look, there's other people. I did it myself, grab a bag, pick up some stuff and throw it out. But they're letting people just trash everything as the cause is there. I think amphitheater, they partnered with a water in a can to save, the plastic. But if you're underneath the awning, they have you pour the water from the thing into a plastic cup because they don't want you throwing the thing. So it's like, yeah, sure, we make an effort to want to make it appear that way. How do you really find the people who are standing behind what they believe in?
That's tough. And to be fair, there is a lot of talk, but there is less action. Kind of talking about what earlier what we were talking about, where we've been trying to like at least make some progress is to team our clients up with sponsors who have built sustainability and other causes like into the core of their business. And by that, I mean, these are companies that have third-party certifications like the Certified B Corp movement, like climate neutral, like 1% for the planet. There are several different ways that companies can literally make a commitment, or even companies who are becoming public benefit corporations and writing these things into their bylaws. I think Lemonade Insurance is a good example of this. But as much as possible, we are looking to partner with sponsors who are not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk. That way our clients can feel confident, comfortable, and even proud of representing these brands. So in many ways, like we haven't really partnered with any legacy brands as far as sponsorship goes. Like we're partnering with a lot of challenger brands who are building sustainability and other causes like into their business, right, from the get-go. And that's where we're trying to do as an agency is we're trying to build, positive social impact into the core of our business from day one, so that we don't just become like another big legacy agency whose only purpose is to return, profits and value to shareholders. Like if there's one idea, Matt, I'll leave with you and your listeners is that, and this idea kind of is the biggest idea that's on my mind constantly, is that I think that returning value to shareholders is a responsibility of business, not the responsibility of business, right? And if you keep that in mind, like for 50, 60 years, we've been basically worshiping this idea called shareholder theory that says this is the opposite. The only responsibility of business is to return value to shareholders, right? Well, how did we get all of the issues that we're dealing with today, right? That one concept kind of flooded throughout the rest of the world and throughout our culture. And if it's always all about the Benjamins, then you're going to have issues like we have today around climate change, around the mental health crisis, around, we could go on, but just that the thinking of like business is only about making money and returning investment to shareholders is very destructive. I feel like let's think about how can we return value to shareholders and do it in a responsible way. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying let's change how business operates completely, but let's be more thoughtful and more mindful about.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny math involved in shares and shareholders and stocks. Anyway, Brent wants to know why his stocks are not following the theory. He knows it's the ebb and flow of the stock market. What was your background to get you into this with regards to sponsorships, and then also, the sustainability and the cause?
Sure. I definitely did not come from like a traditional sports and entertainment background. In fact, I've never even worked at an agency before. So I'm a great person to go start an agency, right? But I did, love sports and entertainment growing up as a fan, but also as a participant. Played baseball, played golf growing up. When I was at Georgetown, my kind of mindset in the business school was, all right, I want to go try and work for a front office for a Major League Baseball team one day. And of course, there's only 30 of those jobs, and it's extremely grueling to go down that path. So I started to shift my thinking, and maybe I can work in marketing in sports. So ultimately, I was thinking like, let me go work in sports marketing somewhere. But then I came across this idea in college of social entrepreneurship, which you kind of hear and see my passion for that. And it just made sense to me, right? It just made sense that businesses would be both creating value in the form of profits and creating value in the form of treating people the right way, treating our planet with respect. So long and winding road since graduating from Georgetown, but I've worked in sports, I've worked in a startup, I've worked right before starting TWG, I worked at a company called EverFi, which is an education technology company. And a lot of the things that we're talking about today, Matt, I was kind of right in the thick of it with EverFi. They were basically building large scale youth education programs, and distributing them for free to the schools and getting sponsors to pay for the distribution of the technology and the content, right? And I was in the sports and entertainment division at EverFi. We were doing these large scale youth education programs for the NFL, for Major League Baseball, for the NHL, for the Premier League, for the Brooklyn Nets, the list goes on. Some of the largest entities in sports were partnering with EverFi so that they could basically distribute this education on things like critical skill, like life skills, like financial literacy, like mental health, like entrepreneurship, STEM. So I was at that intersection of social enterprise and sports at EverFi, and I was inspired by that enough to go and write this book through in sponsorship, which came out 2.5 years ago, and then to start TWG as well. I just really believe in this thesis that like we can leverage the attention and the power of sports and entertainment to contribute to the greater good. So that's what I've been all about ever since leaving EverFi.
Do you know Aileen from 5T Sports Group up in Canada?
No.
Yeah, she was. We had her on the Wolff Den in the early days. She's big into sports and sustainability. I'll have to connect you two on that. I think it'd be a good match to at least have a conversation about, passionate about very similar things. Do you have company A and find someone, like you work with these guys and you find someone for them, or is a lot of it you work with them, they're a good fit for each other? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely taken like the client-centric approach first, right? Where we definitely partner with our athletes and artists and other clients, and then we try and basically match the right brands, the right sponsors to their personal brand, to their mission, to the causes that they care about. So a good example would be, I mentioned our beach volleyball client, Jeremy Casebeer. He's really into sustainability and environmentalism and being an advocate for climate action. So we've been really working towards how can we team him up with sponsors who are certified B Corps? How can we team him up with companies that are, legitimately sustainable. And then, because he is very into it and he himself has gone down the path of, checking out his own personal carbon footprint, finding ways to improve his lifestyle in terms of, the environment and sustainability, it's a much more natural and authentic fit with the sponsors. And so we've teamed him up with a company called Fair Harbor, which makes beachwear out of upcycled ocean plastic. We teamed him up with a company called Mir, which makes stainless steel drinkware. And they donate money on their profits with every product that's sold. The list goes on, but I would say where we're probably going to go over time, Matt, is not only representing the athletes and helping match them up with the right brands, but then also start to advise brands who just the inverse, right? They're looking for the right spokespersons, the right ambassadors to communicate their message in an effective way and can communicate their mission in an effective way. I anticipate we'll start doing some brand consulting work in that space in good time.
Do they have to not have an agency to work with you, or can you, as an agency, work with someone who already has an agent as an athlete? I mean, that's a difficult thing to find, people who aren't represented at all, right? So you have to kind of work with the people who have representation to say, we have some opportunity for you, correct?
Yeah, we do have clients who already have management, and we kind of come on as part of the team, if you will. Yeah. And yeah, I would say, we are very specialist right now. And in some cases, an athlete might have an agent or they might have a manager, but they don't necessarily have someone who is like selling sponsorship for them on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So in that case, we could very well team up with an athlete who already has an agent and just become a part of their team. We can be the partnerships team, if you will, where the agent might primarily focus on contract negotiations, with a team or with a league or with a tour. We would focus on, going outbound and creating opportunities for the athlete to get sponsorship revenue coming in the door.
There's I'll introduce you to someone else. The Crab brothers.
Yeah.
Volleyball.
Yeah, Jeremy Casper has been competing against them for many years.
Yeah, so we've talked to, he might have been on the show too, man. 179, I forget, but his agent or someone, his marketing coach, I can introduce you to him too, Richard Hiskey, who push play out in California, could be another person to speak with as you're honing in on an area, because once you have some good partnerships and ideas with an area, I think it makes sense to sort of, it's a very copycat world, kind of like dominoes. I'm doing this. And I had this conversation. I didn't realize, but someone told me, like, I always used to think being first was important, but you want to be second. You want to be first to be second. That's what people want. First to be second. So, once something is proven to go, then people latch on and say, all right, this is something that works because someone else did it. Good stuff and bad stuff about that. You're in a similar position to me. We're a startup. We're young. But you're in a different, in the way of you trying to deal with customers and bringing customers. Have you told somebody no yet because it doesn't align with what you're doing? I know there's going to be opportunities where you do it, but as you're young, for me, I might just have gone ahead and done it because I needed to, whereas you are bringing on someone who could really contradict what you're trying to do. It probably would affect you a lot more than it would me. Have you gotten that point yet?
Yeah, we've done that a couple times. I think there is a certain extent where when you're so young as a company, you almost have to keep saying yes just until you get to a certain scale, to when then you can get picky. But I would also think I think strategically for TWG, like our positioning and like our authenticity is very, very important. And like for us to really be differentiated in the marketplace, we really need to work with a specific type of client, right? So we are definitely, I would say we're not to a point where we're like consistently saying no, but we have said no, to a potential client just because it wasn't quite the right fit from a value standpoint.
Was it My Pillow?
We would if they brought up if they put a big sponsorship deal in front of one of my clients, I
Millions,
would decline.
millions, millions. Yeah, millions. Who's
Commission
your
check isn't worth it in that case.
Mr. I always say there are people that I would just be like, I don't care how much money you give me, I'm gonna have to say no. It's not a lot, right? But there are people and companies out there that you're just like, I can't do it.
Matt, a great example from sports recently is look at Phil Mickelson.
Yeah.
Looking to partner with basically Saudi Arabia to create this new super golf league. Look how quickly his reputation tanked, right?
Yeah.
And even that comment about overlooking human rights abuses and the murder of the Washington Post journalist, and that, he literally has been one of the fan favorites on the PGA Tour for 3 decades, and look how quickly his reputation tanked.
It's still fine because there's the other side who's going to lift them up. That's the. But hey, look, there's a market for everyone or something, right? There's a market for everyone. Give me do you have a dream? Manifest your dream company, brand, athlete.
Wow, good.
Athlete and company. Do one individual and one company / brand.
All right. Well, I'll give you one, and maybe this is like a good way to help people understand our business. I would say like Stephen Curry and or Naomi Osaka are 2 examples of like a modern day impact athlete. Steph, in the sense that he's literally, if you look at his sponsorship portfolio and what he's doing off the court, he's really doing what we recommend to our clients, like integrating causes into his deals, investing into social enterprises, and just like Steph is like one of the quintessential, athletes today who have an amazing impact outside of their sport. And then I'd say Naomi Osaka, mostly because she's not afraid to break down the stigma around mental health, right? And like when she took time off away from major tournaments last year, in the past sponsors might have pulled money for her for not participating. But the reaction has more been like support, because more and more people are agreeing that we need to break down stigma around mental health and mental illness. She is kind of now she is the highest paid female athlete in the world, and in no small part due to her ability to just try and contribute to certain causes like mental health in a positive way. Brand wise, man, there's a lot. Ooh, I would say
it could be a company that you always wanted to work for to try and help their brand.
Yeah, I'm going to throw out Sweetgreen for a couple of reasons, and maybe it's not popular in all parts of the country yet, but they're a restaurant chain. Think of them as like the Chipotle, but for healthy eating, right? And salads and healthful eating. But I would say Sweetgreen, because literally one of their core values is win-win-win, right? And like that's literally what I'm building my brand off of, is that same mindset. I think Sweetgreen has a chance to be a Chipotle size company over time, and also really make a positive impact in that healthier people, healthier planet lane that I mentioned is really important to us. So I'll say Sweetgreen.
We have Bolé and Fresh Kitchen here. I don't know if you've heard of them. Very similar to Sweetgreen. You get a bowl, you put some protein, you put some veggies, and those type of companies. We're going to let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question we get everyone out of the Wolff Den on. You can pick one person in the world to spend a day with. It could be anyone, as long as they are alive and you're not related to them. Who would you pick, and what are you guys going to do?
Man, that's a really good one, Matt. This is just off the cuff and really random, but I'm just going to go with Bruce Springsteen, and he's going to teach me how to play guitar. And then we'll maybe ride around a motorcycle or something. I don't know.
Boy, he doesn't have to do anything else. He sold his music for $500 million. He could just do whatever he wants. I'm a New Jersey guy, so the boss is a big influence in New Jersey music and just in general. How about Dolly Parton saying, the Hall of Fame should not consider us? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, little humility there from one of our public figures.
I
We
mean,
love to see it.
she's going to get in anyway, but still, I think she seems to be doing good. Which it's always, it's never a bad time to do good, right? Was that John? Who was the politician who just passed? I
John
think
Lewis.
yeah, Lewis said that, or maybe Martin Luther King might have said that. The time is always right to do right, and I'm all about it. Right side of history, golden rule. Let's make the world a better place by teaming together and chipping away at it. And it seems like you guys are aligned in the same way, and so it's great to hear that. I wish you guys a lot of success. I think it's the right way to go. I mean, just putting that out there. There's enough people out there who want to do that, and so I think it's going to do well. Excited to see where you get. Check out thirdwind.com for more information. John is on Twitter, so follow him there and interact, or reach out to him through thirdwind.com. And we look forward to March Madness. You're going to watch. Do you watch all day, Thursday, Friday? Do you have any March Madness traditions? Do you have a winner for us?
Yeah, it might just have all of the games up on my screen as I'm working, but it's an unofficial holiday in the sports and entertainment industry. So,
do you have a winner for us? Who's going to win?
It's Gonzaga. Gonzaga's going to finally break through. I know they're the number one seed, but there aren't that many great teams, and Gonzaga is finally going to break through.
I think so. I think they're going to be Baylor to get to the championship. I never go chalk like this, but I think Gonzaga, Baylor, Arizona, 3 number ones in the Final Four. I think Kansas is going to lose, but there's going to be a lot of upsets around that.
Right, you heard it here first, everybody.
We could
be brackets.
We could be totally wrong. I'd be shocked if Gonzaga goes out early. So we'll see. Well, happy March Madness. Great to chat, and we'll talk again soon. Enjoy the basketball. There's a lot of other stuff going on. Spring is here, and we're back next week with some more Wolf Den. Have a great night.
Thanks everybody. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.